All right, let's take a look at these nerfs. What we got here. So, Lehuvim, 15% health reduced on Mythic difficulty. Big nerf to its health, although this is not a huge change to what you're going to see on the fight. Any guild that's like seeing that 4th intermission is not going to see it anymore. But I don't think this will affect too much other guilds. Like my guild, I don't think this is really going to make us turbo push and like beat the 3rd intermission. Although I can't prove it. Resonance Cascade damage reduced by 90% on Mythic difficulty. All right. Now, 90%'s a lot. I, of course, know what Resonance Cascade is off the top of my head. But for some of you who don't, I'll just pull it up real quick in the Dungeon Journal. Is Resonance Cascade this Resonance ability? Or is it something else? I guess Mythic, maybe? Yeah, okay, we're on Mythic. Oh, Resonance Cascade. Okay. Okay, Resonance Cascade is the unavoidable component of the Mythic mechanic. So this is the part that does more damage the more people that stack. So what this means is you could probably have all 20 players in the raid stack on a single point and survive the Resonance Cascade, because it's going to inflict 700 per player, right? So, now I'm a math expert, but for those of you who want to follow along at home, right? 700 damage times 20 players. This would inflict just 14,000 damage to each player in the raid if everybody stacked every time. Whereas before it would have done 140,000, right? Which is obviously not especially livable. So that was why you had to split into like 5 groups of 4, because there's also other damage going out at the same time. So, but that will let you avoid the Dissonance Cascade, which is not getting nerfed, which is if somebody is standing alone or in a group of only melodic or harmonics, right? So I suspect the new strategy for this is going to be there will be 1 or 2 stack spots and just everybody will go on those rather than splitting into like 4 groups of 5 or 5 groups of 4 or anything like that. Increase the cooldown of Guardian Automa's Form Sentry on Mythic difficulty. So this is a big nerf as well to the Guardian Automa, especially if you let the first Guardian Automa live, which a lot of guilds do. My guild didn't on progression, but we've been doing it on farm. On progression, we actually split up and killed 2 of the first set of blueprints, but that was a pretty tight DPS check and a pretty tight coordination check. And now if you don't do that, presumably if they reduce this cooldown enough, this will make the raid damage that results from doing that a lot less painful. Yeah, the Blasphemy one. We'll get to the Blasphemy ones in a sec. Let's just talk about Alandras real quick. Aftershock damage reduced by 75%. This is the things that are left behind by the missiles. It's a good question, Yujai. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, Aftershock, the ones that are left by the missiles. So yeah, it's Earthbreaker missiles leave Aftershock. So we're reducing this damage from 150k fizz to... Again, I know what 25% of 150 is. I guess 32.5? 37.5? Let's find out. Let's find out which of those it was. 150 times 0.25. 37.5, right? As I said, 37.5. 37.5k fizz. After you've just taken 27k cosmic. So you still want to dodge the aftershocks, but it's not going to kill you anymore. Unless you're already low. Or you're a bomb carrier. And tanks can just completely ignore this, except for the knockback, but you already kind of could. Planet Cracker Beam damage reduced by 65%, and its damage occurs less frequently on Mythic difficulty. So Planet Cracker Beam was unbelievable amounts of damage on Mythic. Yeah, look at this. 75k Cosmic every 0.3 seconds. So basically, if you touched a Planet Cracker Beam, either the first tick would instantly kill you, or the second tick would kill you 0.3 seconds after you touched it. So almost never a thing you could live without immunities. Now it will deal much less damage, right? If it just did 25k every 0.3 seconds, that would still be pretty lethal. But depending on how much they reduce this cooldown to, like if they make it every 1 second or every 2 seconds, it will be a lot less lethal to touch, which I think is a good nerf to this fight. That was the main way you'd have random player deaths, was to Planet Cracker Beam. So, yeah, another big nerf to the crab. The crab is getting, I mean, the crab has already been declawed like 5 times, but this one is another. They're taking every time they go in like, okay, what's the hardest part of this fight? And then just remove it entirely from the game. Anduin Rin. Hopelessness and overconfidence duration increased to 16 seconds on all difficulties. Was 12 seconds. This is just P1. Hopelessness mechanic. A lot more time. Not a huge change, I would say, to the texture of the mechanic. The time, like, usually it was people running into the wrong things that were killing people. But Blasphemy will no longer be triggered when coming into contact with an unmarked player on Mythic difficulty. The tooltip will reflect this change in a future patch. This is the big nerf to this mechanic. Now it is just heroic hopelessness mechanic, which means you don't have to do coordination, reactive gameplay, or assignments, however you want to do it, to make sure that people don't run into each other. You don't run into the same lanes or anything like that. You don't have to like have everybody go down in the same spot and hide there. So, yeah, big change there. All right. What do we got next? March of the Damned damage reduced by 75%. So that's if you get hit by one of the intermission walls on Anduin. March of the Damned, yeah. 600k Shadow Frost damage instantly. Oh, but you have a 90% DR here. So it's 60k. And that now it's going to be going down to 15k hit. So getting stunned, the stun is now the big problem. The damage is not going to be very much. Soul Explosion damage and travel speed reduced by 30% on all difficulties. Okay, that's the dodging thing. So that's still going to kill you if you don't have the DR. It's still going to kill you at the end of the phase. But it's no longer like... Well, you can live 1 now probably pretty easily, and you can live 2 maybe. Banished Soul cast time increased 16 seconds on Mythic difficulty was 12 seconds. So this was 8 seconds when the fight came out, or 9 seconds or something. But now it's up to 16. So that means you probably have to stun once or maybe twice. I guess you probably have to stun twice, but it'll be very free to do that with the people who are sent downstairs. Still, the problem that's going to wipe you is doing too much damage to the souls or not doing enough damage to the souls. Those will still be problems for people. That'll still be a coordination challenge on this fight. That's not getting changed at all, but the stunning part, not going to be a problem at all. Necrotic Detonation cast time increased by 30% on Mythic difficulty. All right, that's a huge nerf. This, it's actually a little bit of a sleeper nerf, because it's going to make it more than like 30% easier, because the mob is losing health over time as well. So you're going to have to do not just the same amount of damage over a longer time, you actually have to do much less damage over a longer time, because the soul deals damage to itself while it's casting. This is a really good nerf, because this is the thing, like my guild still wipes this a non-zero amount of the time that we pull Anduin, because it's just you have to do so much damage to that thing. So I'm sure this was something that was a huge pain for guilds, especially ones that have less coordination, less cooldown planning for that kind of thing, or less good specs for it. Rygalon. Dark Eclipse now targets 3 players on Mythic difficulty was 4. So this is a huge change, because you might see this and you may think, okay, that's 25% less targets, but it's actually going from 0 room for error, right? You could have 0 of your Quasars being taken by the wrong player or expiring before a Dark Eclipse would be triggered. Now you get a huge amount of room for error. You get to miss 3 per phase. 3 of the ground puddles can be either used by the wrong people or can expire, and you won't wipe. So that's a huge amount of why you would wipe to Rygalon, especially in early and mid progression on the fight. Definitely going to make this a lot easier. And Unstable Matter health reduced by 25% on Mythic difficulty. Unstable Matter, I believe that's the one you DPS during P1 and P2, maybe? Yeah, Unstable Matter. Volatile spheroids form within pylons. Yeah, so these are the ones that... okay, so just the ones that you have to... Whoever goes downstairs with the Dark Eclipse will now have 25% less damage, but you are sending down actually 33% less players when you think about that. So you actually do need to do more DPS per player that is sent down to the unstable matters in order to kill them. So that part actually you probably do want to make sure you don't let up on. You probably actually do want to focus more on than you were before. Jailer, torment damage reduced by 30%. Great nerf to this encounter. The most causes of death on this fight are related to messing something up in addition to a torment. So reducing the damage of that is a really good way to make it so that it's like, I mean, torment's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage on that mechanic. It's still going to be lethal, but a lot less so. Yeah, it's a good point about the unstable matters is the first one of the fight is the one that's most likely to not get killed. And then after that, the second and third can be a lot better. Yeah, the Quasar timing is also a lot easier because there's room for error with it. Anyways, Unholy Eruption damage reduced by 30%. I believe this is the P2 Torment mechanic on Jailer. Let's investigate. No, that's Tormenting Echo. All right, maybe that's the P3 adds. Torment. No, that's Cry of Loathing. All right, what is Unholy Eruption? Unholy Shining Blast, Unholy Eruption. Pylon's coming up. Oh! Wait, is that... Pylon's coming up. Unholy Eruption? Unholy Attunement subsection. Unholy Eruption. Okay, so... Each pylon creates up to 3 unholy eruptions when it's raised based on its proximity to the machine of origination. So you actually get... You get what? Like 5 instances of this damage on the last one of the last cast of Unholy Attunement before the one that pushes phase. So yeah, it's a reasonable amount of raid damage. We use raid defensives against this damage, and it was very important for progression. So it seems like another reasonable thing to nerf. Rune of Compulsion Absorb reduced by 30% on Mythic difficulty. Great nerf as well. I think, yeah, Mind Control Health was a good target here. Chainbreaker only targets 3 allies, and the chains no longer grip the people to the person. This is going to make this mechanic so much easier to manage. First off, this is a huge reduction in raid damage in P3, right? This is 33% less Chainbreaker damage, which is a huge amount of the source of death in P3 attempts for a lot of guilds. And you no longer have to, like, break one at a time as explicitly. Like, you could break 2 people right around the same time if you wanted to, and the second won't get gripped back. You don't have to do any shenanigans to make sure that they can get there, and you won't see anybody randomly getting gripped somewhere they don't want to be, which does also sometimes happen. So, big nerf to P3. Health of the adds in P3 also reduced. Big nerf there as well. Even though it's only 20%, the adds, you know, when they're sub 20%, getting a cast off is something I see a lot in Jailer prog. In terms of what wipes people. Diverted Life Shield reduced by 75% on Mythic difficulty. I believe the Life Shield itself is about 8% of the boss's HP, or 6% or something. I may be wrong on that. Let's see if I can find... Maybe I can go pull up a log or something and see if I can find... just how much the boss shielded on my last... Yeah, okay. Correct? Okay, so it was 8% before... So yeah, it's losing... It means the P4, instead of having effectively 21% or 23% of the Jailer's life to break through, you now only have 17% of the Jailer's life to break through. So it'll be like you got the Mirrors of Torment exploit. Sorry, the Mirrors of Torment cool stratagem to work on it every time. Whereas kind of before post nerf, it was kind of like halfway between getting it and not getting it. Now it'll just be, very, actually less health than when it would shield but not heal. So, yeah, massive, massive nerfs to the whole raid. I endorse all of these. I think that, okay, first of all, like, heroic mechanic instead of mythic mechanic, right? Heroic mechanic instead of mythic mechanic. They're changing a lot of things to just completely gut them. which is sad for like that would make the fights a lot less fun for me to progress on. And I certainly empathize with guilds that are on low numbers of hours but high levels of enjoyment of difficult fights and just haven't had the time to put in the pulls to kill these bosses. But I believe those guilds represent a small enough minority against the guilds that are like bashing their heads into these encounters and really needed the help, and normally would get their help in the form of stuff like getting their 5 set of rank 5 shards in Sanctum, or getting their rank 12 cloak in Nyalotha that would make them much more powerful than Echo were when Echo were able to kill these bosses. But this tier, there wasn't anything of the sort. And so, yeah, hugely welcome nerfs that should help make the cutting edge environment here look a little bit better. Like if we look here at Sepulcher, actually, yeah, so there's what, 260 guilds that have killed Jailer, and if you go down, it's like the top 1,000 guilds are 8 out of 11 or something. Whereas if we look at Sanctum, right, now obviously this was the end of the tier, right, but Sanctum we had, and some of these have been done a little bit after the tier, but not very many, actually. Not very many guilds killed Sylve that didn't when it was current. So way more guilds able to find success in Sanctum. Way more guilds, probably more raiding as well, but way more guilds doing it in Castle Nathria, in Nyalotha. Like, this was a uniquely slow to fill up tier, and there's uniquely difficult bosses all the way along from 6 up to 11. So, now, yeah, to be fair, this was naturally going to fill up and get somewhere closer to there, but I do think these nerfs were warranted and good. I answer a couple questions from chat. Do I think Jailer is 3 healable now? My guild just started 4 healing it for sales, and it was kind of sketch. Do I think these make it 3 healable? Yeah, probably. Do I think 3... Like, I think it'll be probably slightly sketchier than it was for my guild to 4 heal this week, but probably possible. I suspect it'll just be a nice, easy 4 heal now. Yeah. Because the problem you run into, yeah, is healer CDs. You start to get pretty sparse on those once you are talking about having that few healers. All right, next question I saw. Does this mean early August Season 4? Yeah, this might mean that they're looking to push out Season 4, and they're ready for this raid to just, like, everybody who's used to getting cutting edge and who wants to get cutting edge can have a better chance of it now. What do I think this means for guilds that are currently playing to get cutting edge? I think probably if you were currently working on Anduin, you should be able to get cutting edge under this environment. If you were before Anduin, you probably still have to hit the gas pedal in order to get cutting edge, but that's going to depend on when Season 4 does come out. These are big nerfs, but there's still a lot of hard encounters, and there's been a long tier so far, and guilds that are only on, like, Lahuvim haven't really killed that many bosses, right? So I think that it would be possible for a guild like that to get cutting edge, but it would require a combination of playing better, playing more, having more geared characters, like some combination of those factors, I think. But I think if you're currently progressing Anduin, these are nerfs of the scale that I think cutting edge, which was previously not realistic, is now realistic if it's, say, in August Season 4, which, who knows, right? It could be, that's still obviously a big unknown. Yeah, again, there is still difficulty on the Jailer encounter, but a lot of it is much less. They took a lot of the teeth out of this. Do I feel like it's okay stuff like Planet Cracker Beam or March of the Damned one-shots on Mythic? Feel like those nerfs are a bit of a miss. I think that those sorts of nerfs are fine to do this late into the tier. I prefer those nerfs to the, like, removing the Mythic twist on hopelessness. I understand why wanting to do that as well, and maybe that's just personal bias, because, like, I found this mechanic really fun to interact with, but I think just changing stuff on Mythic from, like, okay, this is not going to kill you anymore, and a couple weeks later, okay, this isn't going to kill you anymore, I think maybe makes... I think I prefer that to, like, going through everything and taking it down 10% or something like that. With these nerfs, how realistic is a 6-hour 5 out of 11 guild just started a Lahuvim guild, or Lahuvim to get cutting edge? Yeah, I kind of just talked about this, but I think if you're currently on Lahuvim, it's still gonna be tough to get cutting edge. You're still probably gonna need to be accelerating in terms of your progression in order to get it. Yeah. Somebody said, or Ujai says, I find it interesting. The prog stats IO site shows 7,000 kills for Shriekwing, 4,000 for Terragru, 2,000 for Guardians. Makes sense so few guilds have succeeded this tier. The problem with reading too much into that specifically is you might confuse cause and effect, right? If fewer guilds are around and even interested in starting, right? Like, so the argument there is like, oh, Shriekwing is, 3 times easier than Guardian. But actually, I think it's more just like, oh, fewer guilds even started. That being said, I do think Guardian is a lot harder than Terragru, but I actually think Terragru is easier than Shriekwing. I think Terragru was one of the freebiest first bosses that has been around. So, yeah, I think it does mean that fewer guilds have gone in and started raiding Mythic, but I actually think that Vigilant Guardian in particular, like the difficulty of the start of Sepulcher, was a thing that still barricaded off the raid from a lot of guilds that otherwise maybe would have gotten to like 5 out of 11. Like, I think there were a lot of guilds that in Sanctum went 3 Mythic or 4 Mythic bosses, something like that, that maybe got into Sepulcher and either killed like 2 bosses or just like bashed their heads against Vigilant Guardian for a day or two and was like, all right, we're not touching Mythic this tier. I don't know for sure. I don't have a lot of contacts in that community, but that's my read on just, I mean, this raid started hard and it became hardester as it went on. All right. Yeah, so I guess that's my initial reactions live to the raid tuning changes. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like and sub and stuff. TY.